welcome. I am going to talk today about trafficking, Hollywood, and really just answer a bunch of questions. I had a few questions in a post earlier, and then I've been getting questions for like 11 years because I've been speaking about my story very publicly for 11 years. And so, hi, my name is Jess. I am a survivor of what is technically called child sex trafficking, and I'm actually both domestic and international because I'm from the US, born in the US, but I was also trafficked into Canada. So that's fun. What else do you call it? So here's the thing, is that I really want to talk about some of the things that are going on, because in the world, it appears that I'm taking a very, very counterproductive or opposite approach to things. And in a lot of ways I am, but it's because people don't understand what's going on in the world. And quite frankly, I'm not even mad about it, because when I went public with my story 11 years ago, I did the same exact thing and I'm a survivor. And so I'm not mad at you, but it's time to learn and grow. And so the questions that I had were like, how do you talk to your kids about it? How do we talk to our kids about trafficking? How do we protect them from it without scaring the crap out of them? And then what can we actually do? And those are some of my favorite questions because they are solutions based, which is what is so important, right? Because we want solutions. I don't want other children to end up like me. And yeah, it just makes sense. So the first thing is that we can't even talk about how to help people who are being trafficked, or how to talk to our children about being trafficked, and how to protect themselves if we don't know what trafficking is. Because trafficking is so confused in the media almost all the time. I hear stories about people talking about bullying or sexting or pedophilia, all of these different things that are not trafficking. And I'm like, yeah, they're bad. They're bad things. Yes, I agree, but we're using the wrong terms or the wrong labels. And so I'm going to start by saying, what is trafficking? Trafficking is force, fraud, or coercion. And in the United States, which is different than the UN definition, you can go watch an hour-long video or just message me. I'll send you the video. That's more detail about the definitions. But essentially, it's force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person is under the age of 18. And there is this commercial aspect. So trafficking, according to the definitions that I don't necessarily agree with, they are broken down into two major categories: labor trafficking and sex trafficking. Again, I don't necessarily agree with this difference in how it's stated, but that's how the law states it. But here's the real deal, is that labor trafficking is so much larger than sex trafficking. But sex sells. Sex sells everything, and it's sensational. And so that's what the media focuses on. Because I am a survivor of sex trafficking, that's more of what I talk about. But if we really want to address trafficking, we need to look at our manufacturing. We need to look at it within the US. We need to look at our agriculture. We need to look at our farms. Like, how are things being manufactured? There have been so many reports, cases, people who are trafficked into agriculture, who are trafficked into the hotels to do the cooking, domestic servitude, those types of things. Trafficking has a commercial aspect. That's what makes it trafficking. If we have bullying and sexting, yes, it's bad, but it's not trafficking, because unless they're selling the images, there's no commercial aspect. Pedophilia, awful. I wrote about it in my book. What's happening right now with Hollywood and everything, I wrote about 5-6 years ago in my book. I knew this was coming. I've been talking about it for a long time. Pedophilia is not trafficking unless, of course, there is some commercial aspect to it. So that's the first thing that we have to clarify. So now that we have labor trafficking and sex trafficking separated, because that's how the US does it, we're going to look more within the world of sex trafficking. What does it look like? It looks like, especially in children, runaways, foster care, The children that you pass on the street and grumble at because you don't give them money. It looks like children in our schools who are being hurt at home. It looks like children running, street kids. I was a runaway. And it was a whole long series of events, but the biggest problem that we have is children in their homes not being cared for, nurtured, heard, even worse, being abused and neglected and exploited in their own home. They run away. They have this very real problem of food and shelter, and they don't have anywhere to go. And now we're talking children. I started running away when I was 11 years old. Children run away when they're not safe at home. That's what happens. When you're out on the street and the raw reality of life hits you, that you don't have anywhere safe to sleep, you don't have anywhere to go, guess what you're open to? It's not a big trick or a big epiphany when some guy picks you up and is like, I'll give you $50 or $20 for a blowjob, or I can take you somewhere safe, or I can do this. It's people solving a problem, and then the kids get locked in this chaos of world that they're naive to. They don't know. They don't understand because they haven't been taught. And then we have a problem with abuse, with poverty, with education, with racism, with housing. Like, we have systemic issues that cause this. If you want to help children who are at risk or being trafficked, you have to look at the sex industry square in the face and not be scared of it. Because you know what? Prostitution is the oldest profession in the world. It's not going away regardless of anyone's moral views. It's how do we protect children? How do we keep people safe? How do we address these issues in our family? Like, how do we actually stop the problem? And you stop that by preventing the problems that create the system. It's abuse. It's our generational cycles. Reed said it great. Follow the money and just look at it. Because that is what is required. If we're talking about trafficking, sex trafficking, then we're talking actually about trafficking into the sex industry. If you can't look at the sex industry, then you have a problem. And I am not anti-sex industry. In fact, that's why I struggle with the idea of sex trafficking, because I believe that sex work is work, because labor is work, sex is labor, and so I struggle with that separation. But we have thousands, if not millions of people. Look at the porn industry. Look at the escorts. Like, there are so many people that are in the industry, and yet by criminalizing them, I'm a former sex worker. By criminalizing the sex industry, it makes law enforcement completely unavailable to stop the crimes of violence, murder, and rape. Let's just pretend for a second. I'm going to walk you through a scenario that has probably happened millions of times, definitely hundreds of thousands, all over the country. You have a child, somewhere between 9 and 14 years old. They're being abused at home, or they're being hurt at home. Whatever happens, something happened at home, they're pissed off and they're leaving. They leave. They're out there, they're cold the first night, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go. Someone offers them help. I'll go buy you a burger. Immediately, they're locked into a situation that they don't know how to get out of. They're probably naive to the world and how people are addressing them or seeing them. People know that. And they exploit those little things. My pimp asked me something that was the biggest, most powerful question I'd ever heard in my entire life. He said, Jess, if you're already having sex, why wouldn't you want to get paid for it? I was barely 17 years old. I had been on my own for 3 years. I was trying to figure out life, and I was like, that's a legit question. That's truly legit. Like, why wouldn't I want to get paid for something that I was already giving away for free? It was like brilliant in concept. Because you know what? Teenagers who have been on the street for a while are remarkably practical. And you know what really sucks? Being hungry, sleeping on the street. being vulnerable to whoever walks by. That's what sucks. So that's how it starts for many, many children. But then they grow up. They turn 18 eventually, and now they're an adult. And it's only been in the last few years that if you were arrested as a prostitute, as a child, you still just get arrested. That is a very, very new change that children aren't being arrested for prostitution. I myself have an arrest for prostitution while being a minor. It's because we weren't talking about trafficking 10, 15, 20 years ago. We were talking about child prostitutes. And they just changed the terms and everybody gets all fired up. So if you want to teach your children about trafficking, help them understand how to have consent. My body is my body. No one can invade my body. I have rights. I have a voice. I have the ability to control what happens to me and to protect myself. So children being protected and having the power to protect themselves is critically important. They need to know that they're allowed to say no. And it starts when they're 2 years old. Okay, in every culture, in every country, it's happening. Why? Because girls have never been seen as victims. I think it's much, much bigger than that. Yes, we're sexualized from birth. Yes. I think that I've worked with lots and lots of boys and men too. And so I've also worked with lots of transgender and everything in between, because people are people and all types of people are being exploited. But when we hear trafficking, we think of little girls in chains when really it's runaways. It's homeless youth. It's people trying to do something. Maybe they went to Hollywood. We're going to get to Hollywood in a minute. Maybe they went to Hollywood to try to find fame only to be exploited. And there's lots of ways to be exploited. You can be exploited for all types of labor. It's not just sex. What about... I was changing pipes in alfalfa fields when I was 13 years old for 10 cents a pipe. That's a different type of labor exploitation. Now, granted, I didn't get to keep the money when I was being trafficked, but we have labor laws for a reason. It's that sometimes those laws aren't followed. It's just like we have laws that protect people from being murdered, and yet it doesn't stop murder. We have laws to protect people from being raped or beaten, and yet it doesn't stop people from raping and beating people. It's not about the laws, it's about our hearts. I want to jump into Hollywood for a second because this riles me up like nothing else. Anyone who has worked, whether trafficked or willing, in the sex industry in Southern California can attest to how fucking crazy toxic Hollywood is. It is absolutely off the chain. If you don't believe me, go watch some movies with your eyes wide open. What type of people can write the movies that come out of Hollywood? Just watch the movies. Is that a healthy person that can write movies like The Joker? Is that a well-rounded person? Would you trust them to babysit your kids? It's that it's branded as entertainment, but these are things that are being written by people in Hollywood, and it's been around since the invention of Hollywood. Hollywood in itself is exploitation. What about the children who are being portrayed? What about the actors and actresses? These children that are in horror films. What do you think their psychological results are? It's not just the actors, the actresses, the talent. It's everything. The entire system is toxic, and it's been that way since its origin. So yeah, trafficking is happening in Hollywood. It's been happening in Hollywood for a long fucking time. It's that you guys didn't know. You weren't waking up. You couldn't see that, wow, when they talk about pedophilia over and over and over and over in movies, and people are like, oh, this is good entertainment. I'm going to eat more popcorn. I'm going to eat more popcorn. That's good. What kind of a fucking mind creates those movies? the homeless kids on the street and just squatting in and going, hey, how you doing today? What's going on with you? What do you need? If you want to help children solve problems, food problems, poverty problems, housing problems, listen to them. We are all so different. Every survivor is so radically different. We all have different stories. We have different perspectives, but we need solutions. And I have a whole lot of solutions for a lot of things, but if you want to make an impact today, go buy a bunch of food and take it to the kids on the street without any expectation, without any propaganda, without anything. No expectations, and just give them food. If you want to serve them more, buy them a hotel room. You want to know why kids do drugs? Because they're coping. They don't have, we can't even get a house. How can you rent a house when you're a minor? You can't. They have to have someone else. And so if children are leaving abusive homes, that's number one. Let's fix the abuse in our families. Silence didn't work. It didn't work. It left me susceptible. My parents didn't abuse me, but because they didn't talk about their abuse, it was never addressed. Silence doesn't fix the problem. You want to stop problems, you've got to address it, hit it head on. Let's talk about abuse. Let's talk about kids running away. Let's talk about homelessness. Let's talk about food. We have to prevent the problem. And we have to provide for solutions for children who are in these situations. And the adults, because nothing magical happened on my 18th birthday when I was trafficked. Except technically in the eyes of the law, now I'm a criminal. And the moment they do one of their rescue raids, I just read some stats this morning. I've been putting together stats. I believe it was Operation, I'm going to mess it up, so I'm not going to say it. But essentially, out of these big sting operations that they do, they will rescue like 20,000+ people who are prostitutes. They rescue them to get like 200 children, which means we're talking about well over 19,000 people who are adults, who are either trafficked or trying to provide for their family. And many of them would like resources. Many of them would like options. But if you tell someone that you're a sex worker or a porn star or even a trafficking survivor, you know what they do? They run from you like the fucking plague because we have some kind of stigma around us that is like, we're dirty. No, we aren't. That's why I'm a trauma therapist, right? Yeah, we do have to deal with the things. And you know what? Therapy is a whole nother problem. People who are in the sex industry, whether trafficked or willing, anywhere along the spectrum. What about mandatory reporting? If there is a child who is being trafficked or engaging in survival sex because they don't have any other options, and they actually walk into a clinic and say, I need STD testing, I need mental health evaluation, I'm at risk for suicide. Do you know what happens? They can't get services because if they say what they do, they get arrested because it's fucking illegal. We have a problem with laws. Police are not safe people because every time we need help, we get arrested. We already have laws that protect us from violence. We already have laws that protect us from rape. You know what? I'm going to tell you a story. Here's my Hollywood story. Nicolas Cage. I was 17 years old. Yeah. And you know what? He paid me and I got to keep the money, but that fucker raped me. And then he spit. And he told me I should be grateful that I fucked him, that he fucked me. That's what Hollywood is like. Over and over and over again. If you want to stop trafficking, we need to talk about the sex industry. We need safety put in place. We need rights. We need to be able to call law enforcement and say, my face was fucking smashed in, help me. But if we do that, they lock us up. How are you ever supposed to exit? No, I didn't report. I'm sorry, I'm not yelling at you, Venus, but I am. No, I didn't report because I would be arrested. That's why it's not reported. Is that you can't. You literally cannot report because you go to jail. It's the most ludicrous system in the world. Right? People need to protect, not just men. We need everybody to protect. We have a massive problem, but if you're looking for little girls who are chained up, you are not going to find them because there are children who are chained up. And you know who can find them? Sex workers. Because they know what the hell's going on. But sex workers can't report anything because they're going to get arrested. Quit fucking arresting us for trying to make an income. Quit arresting children for trying to survive and then wonder why they can't leave. It's so simple. But you have to be willing to look at the sex industry and say, yeah, it's not going anywhere. You're not going to legalize it away. Can we make it safer? Can we help people exit if they want to? Can we give people protection of law enforcement? You know what I got? In almost every city I worked, cops pull me over and give me an option. Blowjobs or jail? Which do you want? If I go to jail, my pimp is going to beat my ass or someone else's ass who's not worth as much because I'm white. I'm worth more. Don't want to hurt this pretty face. So of course you take the blowjobs. I can't even count the number of times that I gave blowjobs or fucked a police officer to get out of being arrested because I had a quota to make. My God. So this is why I'm mad. Okay, we're going to talk one more thing. You want to know why I'm upset about rescuing people? Because it doesn't work. So think about this. You're 15 years old. You've been on the run for 2 years. You're experiencing survival sex. So there's no actual trafficker. You're exchanging sex for money so that you can survive. Okay? That you're 15 years old, you're trying to survive. That's how it goes down. Now, you're doing something. You walk into a hotel room with your buyer. They do something, you exchange money, and now they arrest you. It's a raid. You have this massive trauma that just reinforces that police, law enforcement are the bad guys. Now you go through this either, it's a covert operation or it's a full-on raid, which I've seen too. It completely breaks trust with the survivor. They don't want to talk to anyone because now they're being forced to do something. The nature of humanity when you're being forced to do something is a giant fuck you. And we wonder why kids get rescued and then they run. They get rescued and they run. They get rescued and they run over and over and over. And the studies go back damn near 20 years of how damaging rescue is. But you know what? Rescuing makes really good fucking money because it's sensational. You show pictures of kids in chains. And I want to know who set those kids up for the photo shoots. You want to talk about exploiting kids? Who the hell in the anti-trafficking movement thought it was a good idea to put a 6-year-old in chains and take photos of them? That's stupid and trauma in and of itself. We have a problem. We have a very big problem and we need help. But we need you to look at this honestly and see what is really happening in the world. Because kids need resources. Adults need resources. Girls and boys and transgender, all of them need resources. Because abuse is rampant. Poverty, out of control. Housing, we have problems. When kids don't have their basic needs met and they're not safe, Guess what they're going to do? They're going to run. They're going to look for it, and there's going to be some bad guy out there that's going to exploit them for it. That was a wild rant. Oh my goodness, guys. I am so freaking angry over this. I am so mad that we're being lied to. That we're not seeing it because it's not the way it looks. Rescuing kids is huge money. We're talking multi-hundreds of millions of dollars are going into rescuing kids with no actual tracking of what happens after they were rescued. That is a huge problem. In the meantime, the aftercare services that are incredibly sparse, incredibly hard to find, and they are typically taxed to their very wits' end. They don't have enough support, enough caseworkers, enough therapists. They don't have enough people, and they're incredibly underfunded. So we have over here the rescue industry raising hundreds of millions of dollars to save kids, rescue them, save the children, and yet all the data over here saying rescue hurts them. We have a problem. It looks different. Please address it in a way that actually helps them because we need the funding. And the anti-trafficking rescue movement is like, but save the children! And they're like, we're trying. We're broke. We're exhausted. We don't know what to do, and you won't listen to us because you don't understand what trafficking even looks like. So thank you guys for watching. Please address abuse. Please address poverty, homelessness, discrimination, stigma, our laws. If you want to know more in depth, buy my book. It's either a $7 ebook or free plus shipping for the paperback. I did that because all of this is in there with a lot more information. Thank you, Venus. We have to make a change. We have to do it differently. The reason why the anti-trafficking, the rescue movement doesn't have a whole host of survivors behind them, raising hundreds of millions of dollars, they sure as hell should. They don't because they're doing damage. We need to look at the problem and address it. Our communities need help. Our families need help. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great day.